This is CG Ruthless Sports. I will be brutally honest. Ain't nothing but being brutally honest. Coming at you with another video.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Marc Adams from the Camelot podcast. What's up, bro?
What's up, everybody? Glad to be on here. Excited. Love your intro. Representing the 49ers against all of these other content creators from other teams. I'm sure you smoke them.
Yeah, I love the Niner vibe, man. But, tell everybody where they can find you on social media platform.
You can find me at 49ers Camelot on Twitter, and that's where I do most of my writing, putting out information for the 49ers during the games and in the off season, during the week. Whenever I feel so moved to write something, I'll post, and then I'm a writer with 49ers Web Zone, so we put out a lot of content for the 49ers there as well. So yeah, 49ers Camelot, come on over and you can be one of the ones that mock me when I write things.
Oh yeah, definitely go check out his the 49ers Web Zone, and Marc Adams' articles pops in between. You can look at his articles. He's got a lot of interesting topics. I think recently you were writing about Jimmy Garoppolo, when is he going to be clear, and then you had Ty Davis Price, which we'll get to that topic pretty later. But what made you very much influenced to do that?
The one about Garoppolo?
No, the idea of doing the Web Zone.
Oh, I've been following them for years. So back before there was social media, pretty much the way that I would find out, because I don't live in the Bay Area, I live in the Chicago area. And so pretty much the way that I found out any 49ers news was online. And normally it was through 49ers Web Zone, because they would not only would have their own content, but if someone like Matt Barrows or Matt Mayoko or somebody like that wrote something, they often would share that and put that through their portal. So that's how I kept up with the team. So I've been following them a long time. And then one day, a little less than a year ago, I saw that they were looking to bring on new writers. And I thought, I've written some things, not about sports, but I decided to just send them some of my stuff and see what they thought. And they said, this is great, but can you write up something about the 49ers so we can have an idea of how you would do that? So I wrote up an article. I don't even remember what it was about, but I sent it in and they said, hey, this is great. We'd like to bring you on, and we'd like for this to be your very first article. And so I said, cool, I'm excited to do it.
That's good, man. At least you're putting the work out there. And, I kind of admire the way you're doing it. Like everybody else, there's those people who do the writing, including yourself. It's outstanding. There's just quite a few good of those writers, besides, you said, besides Matt Barrow and Matt Mayoko, you got a lot of these other ones who do it too. So it's it's kind of intriguing. Before then, when you had the NFL draft, you would just have regular scouts do the interviews. Now you just have content creators with credentials to interview nowadays, which it's kind of an honor, to just get somebody on my show who I've always wanted to watch the draft as a kid. I got the opportunity to interview the 4th round draft pick for the Niners. So, that's something that I can put my head up high for. Yeah.
And it's fun to watch how some of these people that now have press passes and can go and be part of, if John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan have a press conference, there are people that are in that room who just a handful of years ago were just fans like us. And somehow doors opened and now they're actually in there interviewing players and interviewing coaches. And And so that's pretty cool to see, because there's some like Tracy Sandler, 49ers fangirl. I can remember when she was just doing her own thing and she wasn't having the opportunities that she has now. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it does open a door for a lot of us as fans. Like there's a chance, like, I didn't even think this would be a possibility, but I guess I was doing a little bit of my due diligence on this prospect, and I had a good idea that this would be the guy, because when I look at the way Shanahan looks at his offensive linemen, you have to play all different positions. So you play guard or tackle or even center. So I thought he possessed versatility in the way he played. And I said, man, if I just get him on Twitter, just reach out on him. And it just took him maybe a day later. He messages me on the inbox and says, what's up to me? And then he says, let's do it. And it was cool.
That's cool. And I don't follow offensive linemen that well. So it's hard for me to know if Burford or whoever, Aaron Banks from last year, any of these guys, I don't know if they're going to become great or not. You can, with skill players, you can see some of the things. You can see footwork, you can see speed and ability and those kinds of things. But with offensive linemen, for me, that's harder to read. And some people may think that's the easy part, but yeah, that's a tough part for me.
Yeah, offensive line, I played it before, and it doesn't get much recognition. It gets underappreciated. Like, you don't see a lot of these highlight tapes, but since I saw the video, since I saw a type of video to make with Spencer Buford, I say, hey, this was an opportunity for people to find out who he is. So as soon as he got drafted, a lot of the 49ers content creators or the people who just watch the 49ers content, they just looked at the Spencer Buford video and it pops up on my highlight video. And I'm already I think it went from 250 to almost 5,000 views just for that one.
Yeah. And you're right with offensive line not getting the kind of credit. If you think back to those Jim Harbaugh days, the defense got all the credit, but that offensive line was great. And without them, they wouldn't have been doing the things that they were doing. And Frank Gore wouldn't be Frank Gore without that offensive line as well. So yeah, that's very unheralded part of the game right there.
It is. It's the battle. It's the movement of the trenches. But I like to give a shout out to 49ers Ultimate Report. I guess he's a big fan of your articles.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad to have somebody that actually likes them, because social media is rough, man. And Facebook is worse than Twitter. When I first started doing this, David Bonilla, who's our editor, would tell me, don't read the comments. And if you do, just keep moving. Don't get involved in that. But sometimes people would write things that were so stupid that I just couldn't ignore it. And, but I've learned over the year, man, I've learned just to ignore it. Like one dude told me I need to kill myself, and it was because I had written something pro Jimmy Garoppolo, and he didn't like that. So it's crazy.
Well, I mean, everybody has a right to an opinion, man. These fans don't get it. I was kind of skeptical with Jimmy, but I was giving it a chance, but people were getting on my nerves because I said Trey Lance was going to be the pick last year, and they were all going for Justin Fields. It was in between the Mac Jones, and I kind of went on a limb and told him, hey, look, we're not going to get neither of those two. I got to fill in, because if we're going to not say anything, it's got to be somebody that nobody's talking about.
Yeah, that's how we draft. That's impressive. Yeah. You've called 2 in a row. Have you called more than just Lance and Burford?
Those are pretty much the ones that seem accurate, because I asked Burford the question, what would it be like if he got drafted by the Niners? But I wasn't sure if he was. I didn't really think he was on the radar, but it wasn't a surprise because he visited the 49ers and he confirmed that visit. So that was that was a great honor. And the fact that he was able to follow me on Twitter and then give me a message and give me a much thank you and all that stuff. And yeah, I definitely am a big fan of him. Hey, maybe I might just buy a jersey out of it just because he became part of the big guest. But when I look at it, man, now that I look at you, I'm thinking that you're Eric Mangini. Damn.
Isn't Eric Mangini some fat dude?
Hey, you look like him a little
That's
bit. I don't
hilarious.
know. Is it just
I
me?
think he did lose some weight, though. I always think of Eric Mangini and Kevin James. The
Kevin
actor.
James, yeah, the King of Queens. But I
Yeah,
think the Eric Mangini kind of gives you a compliment because he was on our staff as a DC.
yeah, and he was good when he was with the Patriots. He just unfortunately came to the 49ers in a horrible time when they were, man, I don't even know if rebuilding is the right word for those years. It was just a demolition.
Yeah, for sure. So, what really stands out about that article you told me about the other day was the Ty Davis price. Can you explain to the audience why we should be a little more optimistic about the
Yeah,
running back?
yeah. When the pick was first announced, I think my response was, hmm. And then I immediately was like, oh my gosh, 49ers Twitter's blowing up right now. And I went on to Twitter, and sure enough, man, people were mad. Why take a running back in the third round when you have late rounders that you can pick? And I'm not one of those people that watches tape. So like how you have people like John Chapman who break down tape. That's not really what I do, but I did watch a little bit. And more than that, I read a lot just to see what people who I trust were saying. And the thing that started getting me excited was I thought back to the Super Bowl Live, when there's a 10-point lead with 7.5 minutes left, and the 49ers weren't able to milk the clock. And then I thought back to the NFC Championship, which I have to confess, I had COVID during that time. And so I barely remember that game. So it wasn't as painful for me as it was for everybody else. But going back and watching some of that, same thing. 10-point lead right at the beginning of the fourth quarter, and they weren't able to move the ball, weren't able to score anymore. And I think one of the reasons is because Kyle Shanahan's running game really works off of misdirection and off of play action. And when he gets into situations where he has the lead and now he's going to milk the clock, everybody knows that's what he's going to do. And so the misdirection, sometimes I feel like he goes away from the creativity part. He definitely did in the Super Bowl. In that Super Bowl, I think I'd have to look this up to make sure. I'll find it here in a second. But he goes away from some of the misdirection and the creativity. But in both of those games, down the stretch, they weren't able to move the ball because everybody knows what he's doing. And so that outside zone doesn't seem to be as effective when everybody knows what's coming. And so I feel like what they need is a big bruising running back that they can still move right between the guard and the center and the guard and the tackle, and just hit those holes right in the middle. Here's what I was let's see, I'm still not finding this. Okay, so in the Super Bowl, Raheem Mostert, who had dominated throughout the playoffs, the team's best offensive weapon in 2019, only touched the ball 4 times in the Super Bowl in the fourth quarter. George Kittle touched the ball once in the fourth quarter. And Deebo Samuel, who was having a really good game for the first 3 quarters, didn't touch the ball at all. And same thing, if you look at the NFC Championship, Samuel, the 49ers' best player in 2021, touched the ball only 1 time in the fourth quarter of that close game against the Rams. Kittle didn't touch the ball at all. So I don't know why Shanahan does that, but I think for some reason he gets into those situations and he abandons the run, maybe because he knows what the defense is doing and he knows he can't run, so he goes pass happy. But I think one of the things that maybe Ty Davis Price brings is that ability to get some tough yards in close games when they're trying to run out the clock. The other thing that I like is that he's really good at pass protection. Last year in that first Green Bay game, which was, I think, the 3rd game of the year, Trey Sermon ran the ball pretty well. And a lot of people were saying, okay, Sermon's going to take on a bigger role because Mostert's out for the season. He hardly touched the ball from that point on, hardly touched the field from that point on. And so people were asking, what's up with Trey Sermon? I think that the 49ers really like their running backs to be able to pass protect. Bobby Turner is more, like he's more that way than Kyle Shanahan even is. And so for Bobby Turner, if a rookie can't pass protect, he's probably not going to play much. And so I think that that might be another thing here where Ty Davis Price could help, because this is one of his strengths. Now, he's probably not going to be that great as a receiver out of the backfield, but I don't think they're going to use him that way. I think that for him, it's going to be moving the chains, beating people up along the way, and pass protection. And so those were the things that I kind of took away that I was most excited about. But another thing that I wrote in the article was, and I'm not the only one that's mentioned this, so there have been a lot of others who last year, with the selection of Trey Lance, Trey Sermon, and two bigger offensive linemen than what they normally have drafted or signed in free agency, is Kyle Shanahan moving in a different direction as far as the philosophy of his offense? And then this year, they drafted a couple of other big offensive linemen and another big running back. And so it's going to be interesting to see down the stretch if he's going to get away from some of the outside zone stuff that Raheem Mostert was so good. And even, gosh, his name slipped me. He led the team in rushing in 2000.
Elijah Mitchell.
Yeah, the 2 years ago, the little guy, number 22, I can't think of his name.
Matt Breida.
Yeah, Matt Breida. So those two guys were great at getting to the edge. I don't know. I had a guy tweet me the other day when this article came out and said, I think you're wrong about Ty Davis Price because he's really fast. I don't know that he's going to be able to hit the outside like Breida or Mostert. I think that his main role is going to be inside and running over people and getting tough yards, so that down the stretch in the fourth quarter, defensive backs are going to think twice about wanting to tackle him. That's my hope. And I just wonder if that's where Shanahan's going with this.
Yeah, a lot of what Shanahan's changing quite lately. It's kind of been different with our scheme. Like we would always do the outside zone stuff. Now it's becoming like one of those one gap type of stuff. What is it? Mm-hmm. A one gap scheme or something where we just get some power backs here and there and then still run those little fast plays.
Right. And Trey Sermon was supposed to be good at that based on what he did at Ohio State. Now, the interesting thing is I lived in Oklahoma for a long time. So I watch every game that OU plays. And when Trey Sermon was a freshman, I thought, man, he's going to be really good. And then he fell out of favor. But the one thing that I will say is that these read options that I think that they may use Trey Lance a lot. Trey Sermon has experience in that kind of system when he was at OU. So I don't know. I think that he can. I think that he has what it takes to do either. But I just think that I think he fell out of favor last year, and I really believe that it's because of pass protection. Yeah, I could be wrong, but that's kind of what I feel.
Yeah, the critical on him was, like you said, either pass protection, but then they said because of the performance, and then I don't know, like he kind of barely averaged pass almost close to 4 yards a carry, but I was very high on this kid, even being as an Oklahoma Sooners fan, I really liked this kid. I never understood why we didn't use him much during college. I mean, we used him a lot before, but he was injured too, and then he was falling out of favor with other running backs, which we had Riandre Stevenson, he's with the Patriots, but we had a lot of backs, and a lot of them transferred. But one thing that stood out about Trey Sermon was he was good in between the tackles. Like when he went to Ohio State, this scheme that he ran, he excelled at the highest level, but he was behind a running back too. And then he eventually took over. And I don't know, something about him is like he has the ability to be that every down back, but
Yeah,
Maybe
I
that's the
agree.
reason why maybe that's the reason why we got Ty Davis Price to maybe better him a little bit.
That could be, and with a full off season to work on his body, to work on his game, to learn the playbook, those things should help. I think not having Bobby Turner there might help as well, especially with Anthony Lynn. He may bring something totally different to the table, that might make everything click for Trey Sermon. I just this afternoon listened to a podcast with Grant Cohn and Larry Krueger, and Grant asked Larry, who do you think is going to lead the 49ers in rushing this year? And Larry said, I think it's going to be Trey Sermon. He really believes in Trey, and I still do too. What I saw last year when he wasn't, running, wasn't gaining the yards, a lot of those times, as soon as he got the ball, he had people at his feet. And so I don't know. I think he probably was missing some holes, and so some of it was on him and his lack of NFL experience. But I don't think that they blocked for him as well, and so maybe, and earlier in the season they just weren't playing well. The offensive line wasn't playing well. The team itself wasn't playing well. So, I would like to have seen him later in the year to see how he progressed, just like we were able to see Trey Lance progress from that Arizona game all the way to the Texans game several weeks later. But I'm excited to see what Trey Sermon can do. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what Ty Davis Price can do as well. I think that he may bring an attitude to the backfield that they possibly were lacking.
Yeah, we've been lacking that physical type back that closes out games. Most of our backs are pretty quick, but can't take much carries. Like, my critical thing with Elijah Mitchell is, like, he's a good running back, but if you give him 20 more carries or something like that, he's going to get injured. Like, maybe every now and then you might get lucky to give him those touches, but
Yeah,
you need to give him a really good compliment back. And somebody like a Trey Sermon, which I've seen what he's been doing in the offseason, he's been training, he's been working hard.
Yeah.
And it's kind of been like paying dividends for him to train so he can get in better shape and learn the offense, because under this system that they're running, it's not that easy. It's very complicated how they run this offense. So it's a complex offense, and they're going from a wide zone, like you said, like a zone scheme, like an outside zone. They're going from that to a gap zone or something like that.
Yeah. And I'm really high on Sermon and Ty Davis Price, but I agree with you with Elijah Mitchell. As great as he was last year, I don't know if he can carry the load. Now he's supposedly adding weight so that he plays at a little bit bigger this year so that he can take that punishment. That may slow him down a little bit, but I don't know. I think that Kyle Shanahan likes a running back by committee anyway. The thing that I didn't understand last year, I was puzzled by the Trey Sermon thing. But once, oh, good grief. Now I've forgotten his name. Oh, good grief. The other running back that came back last year. Yeah, Jeff Wilson Jr. So, I'm getting old or something. So when he came back and he supposedly was healthy and he barely touched the ball, but Jeff Wilson Jr. has been a really solid running back in those times in previous years when Mostert would be hurt or Breida would be hurt, and Jeff Wilson would come in and he was a star. And so I'm not really sure why he didn't play very much last year when he did come back. Maybe he wasn't fully healthy and they didn't want to push it. But I find that hard to believe simply because, as we all know, at the end, they were using their star wide receiver as a running back. So I'm like, oh my gosh, Debo's going to get hurt, and put in Jeff Wilson. So I'm hoping this year he can help carry the load.
Yeah, Jeff Wilson, what really stands out about him, he is a physical running back, but he can catch the ball off the backfield.
Yeah.
And at the next level. A good pass blocker too, but when he gets the ball off the backfield, this guy gives you those first downs, the change movement and all that stuff. But then speaking of other running backs, there's this kid from Georgia Tech that nobody's even talking about. Like the thing about this Niners running back depth is we're pretty stacked, and there's any of these running backs we get, either they're undrafted or late rounds, they can turn out to be studs out there. Like
and this is Jordan Mason you're talking about?
That Georgia running back. I heard he can catch the ball off the backfield, very physical in between the tackles. Like it's kind of like identically with Ty Davis Price, except with the catching part, because he can catch.
Yeah, that's I heard that. I don't remember who reported it, but somebody reported that Ty Davis Price could not catch anything at the.
I think it was Jordan Elliott.
Could be. But then the Georgia Tech kid looked really fluid in the passing game. So, yeah, and Kyle Shanahan has shown that if just because you're undrafted doesn't mean you're not going to have a chance to play. And so if this kid shows that he can do it, I think Shanahan will use it. I think that Kyle wants a running back like Tevin Cole, like how he had Tevin Coleman and Devontae Freeman in Atlanta. I think he wants some guys like that who can catch the ball out of the backfield. I think that he just hasn't found that guy yet.
Yeah,
Wilson can do it, but I don't think Wilson's as smooth and as fluid in the passing game, and that may be something that's holding him back. Plus, Wilson early on had some issues with fumbling, and Kyle Shanahan hates when guys put the ball on the ground.
Yeah, you get put in the doghouse. Like it's happened with Matt Breida when he had no fumble issues in his couple of years. Then as soon as he started fumbling, you went in the doghouse. So it's like, and I think our running back position, it's one of our strengths. Like we've always found ways to make it our greatest strength. And then you look at other positions like okay, let's say for example, let's say we don't even plan on getting rid of Jimmy. Would you even think that maybe a pay cut would be great to keep him around, or do you think it's at a point where we might need to cut ties with him?
Here's where I stand on Jimmy. I remember, and I see that somebody just asked a question about Trey Sermon being cut. I don't think he's going to be cut. I really.
It's a Browns fan. She's cool.
I don't think that's going to happen. But
nah.
As far as Jimmy, here's my thing. I can remember last year at the beginning of the season, Steve Young went on KNBR, and he said, I think how he put it, he called the 49ers quarterback situation fraught with terror, which is a very Steve Young kind of thing to say. And he said it that way because he said if this was when Shanahan was still bringing Trey Lance in for the occasional little spot maybe down at the goal line, and Steve was really concerned that this was something that could divide the locker room, and he knows from experience because when Bill Walsh did this, it caused problems, and not only did because we probably have all heard Steve Young and Joe Montana speak on this. Both were very frustrated with Walsh during that time, and players started picking sides, and a lot of the players were troubled by it. And there was a point that the team actually had in 1988. They had a losing record. So Walsh brought all the coaches together and basically said, "What's going on? Why are we losing?" And Mike Holmgren spoke up and said, "It's because of you, because you won't settle on a quarterback." And so Walsh left the room, came back in, and said, "All right, Joe's the guy." And from that point on, they went on to win the Super Bowl that year and then the next year. But I think that that's why Steve was calling it fraught with terror, because I think that he was saying if there's not a definitive Jimmy is the guy, and during that time, I don't know that there really was because of how much Trey was getting to play. And if you remember, after that Green Bay game, when Shanahan brought Trey in right before the half and Lance scored the touchdown, from that point on, he really didn't use them. And there were rumors that some players went to Shanahan and said, "Hey, stop doing that." I don't know if that's true or not, but it would make sense, because I was wondering why he didn't keep doing that. So that's my concern, is that, let's say Jimmy gets cleared to practice in late June, and the training camp comes and they haven't traded him, they haven't released him, which I don't know that they're going to release him, because I think they want to get something out of him. And I think that they're afraid that some team like the Seahawks might pick him up, and then they have to deal with him, even though maybe they're not afraid of him. But I think that their worst nightmare would be he goes to Seattle and then beats them twice next year. That would be horrible. And so I think that if they go into training camp and he's still on the roster, I really don't know what they're going to do. Do you let him practice and risk getting hurt and then you can't trade him? Or do you come in and say, Trey's the guy, Jimmy, you're the backup, deal with it? Or do you do the unthinkable, in my mind, and say we have a quarterback competition? I think that would be a terrible idea. I think they just need to settle on Trey. If Jimmy's there, he's the backup, and everybody gets on board.
Yeah, that's going to be the issue. And you know what? Steve Young has a good point, because he goes by experience, because he's been there and done it. So he would know what it could be like, because you're kind of dividing the entire locker room with different sides. Like, you might have other guys like Kittle who are on the pro Jimmys, and then you probably have other guys like Ayuk who are on the Trey Lance. You know, there's a little issue right there. And then you look at the chemistry too. Like, I think if you realize that Brandon Ayuk really enjoys Trey Lance more than he does Jimmy, because you see that Jimmy does not throw him the ball as much. And it's kind of like question. Like, I would figure maybe there's something behind the locker room that nobody knows about. Maybe Ayuk just doesn't seem to have a good working relationship with Jimmy, because Jimmy does not seem to give him the ball as much to Debo and those other guys. If he did, he wouldn't hesitate to throw it to him. You know, that's just...
Yeah, well, the routes that Ayuk runs aren't the same. Kittle's a lot over the middle, Debo's a lot over the middle, and then those little out patterns where then he can break 4 or 5 tackles, and where Ayuk's a little more down the field, and that's just not the strength of Jimmy's game. Jimmy isn't. One of his strengths is not throwing those out patterns down the field, and so. Or even deep balls, and so I think that I think that probably Ayuk sees the potential for what Lance can do, and certainly wanted him to win the competition. I don't think that he hid that very well. I think he was disappointed that Garoppolo was named the quarterback coming out of training camp.
And there were some rumors, if it wasn't for Trey getting injured during the preseason, that he would have been named the starter. I don't know if there was any truth to that.
I don't remember hearing that, but I do remember hearing sometime around that Arizona game that if he wouldn't have been injured, that he would have kept starting even when Garoppolo was healthy. But during that time, the team wasn't playing well. And so I think at that point, maybe Shanahan was kind of getting close to being resolved to the fact that, look, we're not going to make the playoffs. Might as well give the rookie a chance to start learning. But I don't know. I mean, there probably was speculation that if Trey didn't get hurt in preseason, then he would have started week 1. I don't know. It would have been interesting to see if that did happen.
Yeah, there was just a lot of that going on. But now that you're going into the offseason, and now you're hearing a lot of criticism, they're still kind of debating, why is Jimmy still here? Is it that Shanahan doesn't trust Trey? That's what everybody wants to know. And then you get a lot of this media from guys like Chris Sim, Troy Aikman, like you said, Steve Young, quite a few others. There's a lot of question marks out there, and it's just yet to be answered. So we don't know until Jimmy clears off, then we'll know from there. But
Yeah.
But speaking of the draft, what was your overall opinion grade of the players we drafted so far?
I really don't come away from the draft very often like blown away or really bummed, except when the 49ers drafted Nick Bosa. I came away from that really excited. When they drafted Trey Lance, I came away from that really excited. I like the Drake Jackson pick. I think that he has the kind of speed and the kind of bend that they need on the opposite side of Nick Bosa, because Bosa is such a powerhouse. I think they need somebody quick over there, because we know that Bosa gets double teamed every single play. And so if they have somebody who can really get around that edge on the opposite side, teams are going to have to pay more attention to that. That could open up things more for Bosa. It can open up things in the middle for Armstead. And so I like that pick a lot. I think we've already talked about Ty Davis Price. Danny Gray, I like the thinking behind that pick. It remains to be seen how he's going to work out. From everything that I hear, the guy can fly. Larry Krueger loves the pick, said that it was a phenomenal pick and that it was the perfect complement to the wide receiver room. His history of drops and fumbles scare me a little bit, especially knowing how Kyle Shanahan will put you in the doghouse if you can't catch the ball and if you start putting it on the ground. So I like that pick. I just don't know what he's going to be like. The two offensive linemen, Burford and Zakel, again, like we said earlier, I don't really know how to evaluate offensive linemen. If I see them throwing people around like Trent Williams does, then that's one thing. But I have to, and maybe you're going to be able to tell me that I was an idiot back then. When Trent Williams came out of OU, I didn't think he was going to be that good, because at OU, I felt like he was always being called for holding. And so I came away from his last year at OU going, he's terrible. And here he is, the best in the NFL. I don't know what you thought about him back then, but that's how I thought.
Maybe at the time when I was a little younger, I probably would have just said, what the heck is this dude even talking about? But I probably would have just respectfully respect your opinion. But, right. As you get older, I'm in my 30s. So, I got to chill out with all the criticism. So it's okay to be critical. But yeah, in college, like you said, he didn't look too good. Like you said, his last year, there was a little question marks about him holding and the way he played. Like in some perspective, a lot of people were saying that Okun was a little bit better than him. And I would have just agreed on that extent. But then Trent Williams got better. He got better throughout the league.
Yeah, he really did. And there was a video that somebody posted of one of these two offensive linemen. I don't remember if it was Zakel or Burford, but he was tossing guys like, at least on one play, he tossed some dude just like Trent Williams would do. So I like seeing that. But I don't know how either of those are going to work out. And then the two corners, Womack and Castro Fields, again, I think that they have the chance to develop and become good. I don't expect a whole lot from them this season. But as far as the draft, and then the quarterback they drafted at the end, I don't expect anything out of him. But the one player that I think is really intriguing is Khalia Davis. He was the defensive tackle from UCF. I remember, because I wrote a story, Larry Krueger and John Chapman did a podcast where they broke down what they thought about each player. And I remember Larry Krueger loving this pick, which I knew he was going to, because he's really big on DJ Jones. And he was devastated when the 49ers weren't able to bring back DJ Jones. So Khalia Davis, I think is probably a little smaller, maybe not quite as fast as DJ. Probably isn't going to be as good, but that was kind of what I thought when they drafted him. He has the ACL injury, so I think back in October is when he sustained that. So he may not suit up at all this year. But I'm interested to see how that one turns out, because DJ Jones, man, he would wreck things in the middle. And I hope that the 49ers don't really miss that. I hope that Javon Kinlaw can step up and create some havoc there in the middle, because without Jones, man, I would hate for teams to figure out how to start running the ball against the 49ers, because nobody's run on this team for a while. And if they start running on the 49ers, that's gonna be tough.
Yeah, DJ Jones was a huge difference when it came to stopping the run. Like when he was out of the game, our run defense was a little bit leaky and suspect. But since you're kind of like not sure how to evaluate offensive linemen, I'll give you my 2 honest grades about these guys, since I have a good understanding that play the position. So for Spencer Buford, the thing that stands out about him is the way his intensity, the way he moves, the way he puts his.
Is he the one that threw the guy?
The one where he threw the guy like twice, right, on that one play against Texas El Paso. There was that one highlight play I put on as my channel. What really stands out about Spencer Buford is his excitement for the game. Like he just has that intensity. Like he can move quick. They just question a little bit of his weight, but he'll add some weight. He bulks up. He'll get better. Like I think at the next level, he'll be projected to play guard in the next level. So that's a thing. He's been proven. He was a top recruit from San Antonio, being recruited from that program, and he's the pioneer of that program. So that's what he told me, and he's setting that standard. He stood out. He's definitely somebody that might start. I'm not saying I'm not setting the stones yet, but he could be. So, all right. So Nick Sokal, I had to do a lot of that research, and maybe that's the guy you're referring to, where he tossed that guy like he was nothing. So the 49ers have scouted this guy since his freshman year, and this guy has competed at the smallest competition. It's kind of like an Ivy League school, but he can play the tackle, guard, and possibly center. So the Niners have some envision that maybe they can put him at center. So there's been discussions, but what really stands out about him is he's got that big body frame, very physical, and he can move. But people question about his knee bend or something like that, whatever the movements that he does. But it's coachable. Like he can develop. So that will take some time, but I think he's a really good pickup, in my opinion.
Were there any undrafted players that you liked?
Oh, speaking of undrafted, it's the linemen. I love the linemen. That's just Jason
Poe and Donovan West. I wondered if you really like those guys.
Oh, I do. Oh, speaking of Jason Poole, this guy can play the fullback, the center, the guard, and I had this guy on my show a few weeks ago. This guy is a very humble dude, very strong. He actually kind of benches like 500-something pounds in the bench. This guy is stronger than life. He's like Mark Henry strong. This guy can move. This guy was a fullback. He can be versatile. He caught some passes on routes too. So this guy is intriguing. He could be a Swiss Army weapon. Yeah. Donovan West, I look at him as more of a natural center. Natural center. Maybe he can plug at guard, but not at tackle. But he's pretty good. I like him.
He's the one that a lot of the fans went really crazy over, him and the safety, Leon. Was it Leon O'Neal?
O'Neal.
Those two, a lot of the fans were really excited about. So that's going to be fun to see how that comes about.
Yeah, and what really stands out about Jason Poole is, despite being undersized, he makes up for it. He's pretty quick on pulling. He's very physical in between. So I guess it would be kind of like a crazy comparison, but if you had to put Aaron Donald as an offensive lineman, they call him the Aaron Donald of the O-line. This guy is no joke. He can talk. He can talk and do the action. He's a speaker. He told me that's how he describes himself. He's a very passionate guy. He's aggressive. Despite being undersized, he's a spoken leader, so everybody respects him. They listen to him.
Cool. Yeah.
And Donovan West is still young. He's 21 years old. He'll only get better. So the only reason why he didn't get drafted, they were just concerned about his finger injury, or I think it was one of his thumb injuries or something that he had to do. It happened during his freshman. They weren't able to fix it for whatever reason. Now that he said he's able to do it now, so maybe there's something there with him.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens with Tay Martin, the receiver out of Oklahoma State. He was really productive at OSU. And then there was a linebacker that his name escapes me. But I know a lot of people are high on him. I can't think of his name, but
the dude from North Carolina.
Yeah.
Forget how you say his name. I think you forget how you say his name, Geronimo or something.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, from what I hear, he might be a steal. That was somebody that probably should have been drafted based on what I've heard. But again, I'm not a scout.
Pretty much, like, we're not scouts, but we would know better. So then you got this one DB that Taylor Hawkins. I've heard a lot of good things from San Diego State. Like, he could have easily been drafted because he can play. He's very versatile. He was a good shutdown corner in that conference. So that was a shocker. And then Jordan Mason, for whatever reason, could have been drafted too, and he definitely had the good ability to catch the ball. And then the interesting part about it, like, since you heard about that article, it was mentioned through Grant Cohn, and I think Jordan Elliott put an article about it because I guess the coach at Georgia Tech compares him to Marshawn Lynch.
Wow. God, I didn't know he was that big. Lynch is huge. But boy, that's a pretty big comparison there.
Yeah, I thought it was a crazy comparison, but he's about 6'1", I think 230 at least, maybe around there.
All right, I didn't know he was that big. I either read wrong or just kind of pictured him being maybe based off of some of the reports from minicamp or the rookie minicamp.
Hey, you know what? Since we forgot one person, how about Quatrez Knight, the guy from UCLA? Okay, let's talk about him, man, because this guy's getting upset about how just playing. We love you, Moses, man. Come on, man.
Yeah, he's another one that I've heard some good things. I never saw him play because, again, Pac-10, I don't really pay much attention. I'm in the Chicago area, so I'm usually asleep when those games are well underway. But but I have heard a lot of really good things about him. And Larry Krueger, I listened to Larry and Grant on a podcast today, and I think Grant asked, "Who's your sleeper? That you think, the guy that's going to come out of nowhere to make an impact?" And Knight is the one that Larry Krueger named. So he's really high on Quantrez and thinks that he's going to have a chance to make a big impact, maybe even this year.
So yeah, this guy. So according to my buddy, my guy, Coach Moses, his son did play for this guy at UCLA too. So I want to put that out there since he wants me to put it out there. Yeah. And he talks about good things about Knight since that's what he told me, that his son's been saying that he's a really good player and all that stuff, and the people from UCLA. So I guess from when I was looking at Quatrez Knight, he was a transfer. I think he played at Kansas or some other college, or Maryland, and he went down to UCLA. I think he went to like a couple of transfers because I had to do a lot of my research. So the question is he going to play safety or is he going to even play the nickel? Because I'm hearing that he could either play that spot, the nickel.
Yeah, I've heard him mentioned at both. And then I heard somebody say, I know that a lot of people are saying Quantrez Knight can be a safety, but I don't think that he tackles as well. So I don't know. Again, I haven't watched the guy play, but yeah, I think when Larry Krueger was talking about him today, I think he was talking more slot,
nickel or something.
Yeah, more like taking that slot receiver and staying with that guy. So I think that's how he envisions. And Larry used to be a scout, so he knows a lot more about that stuff than I do.
Yeah, Larry Krueger, really good dude. I had him on my show like almost a year ago. This dude, yeah, very good dude, very knowledgeable, very open. Like this guy
Yeah.
tells you like it is. He won't BS you about it, and I can respect that.
Yeah, he's a cool guy.
Yeah, man. Definitely appreciate you on the show, man. I know it's been a blast, man. Like it's good debates, man. Dude, I'd definitely like to keep all the commodity with all the Niners community. And I know you do a really good job, man. Just keep on grinding. Like you said, just let the haters hate, man. You're doing just a great job, man. If they're gonna say some crap about you, man, then you're doing something right.
That's probably true. I see people trashing some of the other guys all the time, and guys like even Eric Crocker. I've seen people calling him an idiot, and I'm like, the guy played in the NFL. I think he knows his stuff. But so yeah, I don't really get too bothered by it anymore. But yeah, it's cool to be able to do something like this. Like I said, I don't live in the Bay Area, so I'm not really around people that want to talk 49ers. So when I do it, it's typically online, and so it's fun to be able to do something like this.
Yeah, I like to bring in a friendly community and make sure everybody gets to know who you are. If they're not too familiar with you, they'll definitely need to check out your web zone articles and all the stuff. And pretty sure as soon as you get your work in and all that, it's going to pay off. But I want to give you a solo intro, and you can say what you want to say, and then we're going to end it from here.
Just excited to be part of your podcast and be part of the 49ers community. I tell you what, I wrote an article on Roger Craig and why he's not in the Hall of Fame. And in that, Larry Krueger helped me make the case for Roger Craig. And in that story, I had the opportunity to interview guys like Joe Montana, Ronnie Lott, George Seifert, Carmen Policy, just to name a few, Steve Young, Jerry Rice. And in that process, George Seifert asked me if I lived in the Bay Area, and I told him no. And told him I grew up in Arkansas. And he said, how did you become a 49ers fan? And so I told him, and this is kind of a weird story, but I was a kid in Houston, Texas, and this was when Earl Campbell played for the Oilers. And so early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. And I'm that old. And that was my favorite team, and Earl Campbell was my favorite player. And then my family moved away from Houston, and the Oilers traded Earl Campbell to the Saints, of all places. And so I decided I'm not going to be an Oilers fan anymore. I'm picking a new team. So whoever wins this next Super Bowl is my new team. And it just so happened that the 49ers won their first Super Bowl over the Cincinnati Bengals. And I told George Seifert, because he was the defensive backs coach for that first Super Bowl. And I said, thank you for beating the Bengals so that I didn't have to grow up as a Bengals fan. And he started laughing, but that's how I came into the 49ers community. And people ask me all the time, if you're not from California, then why are you a 49ers fan? And I tell them that story, and I've stuck with this team all these years, and I'll stick with this team no matter what happens. So if Trey Lance is a bust, then oh well, we move on, and we're going to stick together, and we're going to stay with our team. So thanks for letting me do this. You can check me out on Twitter at 49ers Camelot, or go on to 49ers Web Zone, and you can visit the site staff on there, and you'll find me, probably the ugliest one on there. So just find me, and you can check out my articles and read those. But thanks for this opportunity. It's been a blast.
Yeah, it's been a blast, man. And yeah, not everybody's going to agree with everything, but hey, man, you're doing something great, man. So if they're giving you the criticism, then you're doing something right, man.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. But as always, CG Ruthless Sports and Marc Adams is out, and we'll see you later. Go Niners.